Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. We've talked a lot about the, recent meta changes, what guns are now the best of the best, what guns really aren't worth using anymore, and everything in between, right? What we haven't talked about, though, is the newly formed accuracy meta, if you will, is what I would call it here, because we have so many weapons that are so similar here on 300 health when it comes to their general time to kill that you could argue this gun's meta, no, this gun's meta, no, this gun's meta, and be right about all three of them essentially. Today we're breaking down what exactly I mean behind the accuracy meta statement. So as we go through everything, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. So we are here on True Game Data. As always, huge shout out and credit to Tony for putting in the work and actually building out the site so we can have this conversation in the first place, which is literally valid for every single Warzone player. So of course we're looking at 300 health when it comes to general time to kill, and also combination shots, which you guys have heard me say time and time again is the most accurate way to look at realistic time to kills, because you can look at the headshots on weapons, but that's only telling if you're hitting 100% of the shots to the head. Same deal with neck, chest, stomach. If you're hitting 100% of your shots on that body part in specific, which is extremely unrealistic unless you're maybe 2 feet away from somebody, in which case the TTK conversation doesn't really even matter. So obviously combination shots is the way to go, but also there's something else that Tony has on the site which is incredibly cool, and that is the weapon accuracy percentages. So with these weapons that we're looking at, the NZ, the BAR, the STG, the Vargo, and the Automaton, we can say, okay, we're hitting 100% of shots with every single one of these weapons, and this is what the TTKs will be. But let's be real here. No one is hitting 100% accuracy. That would mean every single time you're shooting and engaging with somebody, you're killing in 7 to 11, 12, 13 bullets, because that's the general shot to kill on most weapons. That's not happening. You're shooting 20, 25 shots most of the time to get one kill and maybe one full finish if you're incredibly accurate. So looking at 100% accuracy, not always the best way to go about it. And when you start to drop down this accuracy to 95, 90, 80, so on and so forth, the TTKs do change drastically, which is why this is such an important conversation, because on paper, if we were to look at 100% accuracy on these weapons, there's some pretty obvious things. I wanted to include something like the Automaton here because it's interesting how this conversation evolves. When you were looking at this, just the standard TTK, you can see the Automaton is sort of up there with the NZ for the first initial, let's say 40 to 50 meters or so, but then it drops off severely, and over range, clearly the Automaton is not that much of a meta choice compared to the NZ, the BAR, the STG, and the Vargo. Whereas those four weapons, maybe with the exception of the BAR through the first 31 meters where it's incredibly good, they're all relatively similar, especially past 40 meters. I mean, they are nearly identical. These are differences that you cannot feel in game, and that most players will never ever notice in a gunfight. That the Vargo here has a TTK that's maybe 0.02 faster milliseconds faster than something like the BAR or the STG. That's just not applicable in true gameplay. But again, this is 100% accuracy. So let's just say we're hitting 95% accuracy on every single one of these weapons. If I go through and I change that, we get a different conversation entirely. Keep in mind, this is just hitting 5% less shots, which is a lot more realistic when it comes down to it. Even 95 is pretty gracious when it comes down to it, I would say. But here, clearly, the Vargo now up close, significantly better than everything else. And look at the Automaton, how much this jumps up if you're landing more shots with that versus the BAR or versus the NZ. Very different TTK chart here, right? Clearly the BAR is a lot more unforgiving if you're missing shots because it has that slower fire rate versus the Automaton, which is a lot faster, the Vargo, which is a lot faster. Of course, though, accuracy here also directly ties into the recoil plots, and you can see here, for the most part, these are very basic recoil patterns. And I won't lie, I saw actually Tony talking about this on Twitter about a week ago or so, I think, about how this no recoil meta is pretty boring, and I agree wholeheartedly. Look at this. The Vargo is the only gun here that has at least a little bit of personality when it comes to using it. NZ, straight vertical recoil. BAR, straight vertical recoil. STG, pretty much straight vertical recoil. Automaton, a lot of vertical recoil, but that's about as easy as the pattern can possibly be. It is just straight vertical. All you gotta do is pull back on your controller or mouse and it'll have no recoil. The Vargo at least has some horizontal movement here, but even then, the Vargo's recoil pattern is one of the easiest in the game. There's no S curve here like you'd see over on the AK or maybe the QBZ in certain situations. These are very easy guns to use, so more players are going to be landing easy shots with weapons like these, hence why that accuracy conversation is so important. Let's say because the automaton is so easy, you're going to land 2% more shots with that versus all of these other guns, right? So we'll change all of these to 93 outside of the automaton. Again, it's a different conversation simply because some weapons are more forgiving than others. You'd think that because you're landing a few more shots with the automaton that it'd be even better, but it's not always the case. It's all about which weapons are more forgiving than the others, tied in with how accurate a certain player is, tied in with how easy a weapon is. So while we do obviously look at a ton of different TTK charts here on the channel, a lot of this meta comes down to now, because every weapon is so similar and so competitive on 300 HP, especially at least for the long range meta, we could have an entirely different conversation for close range. It really comes down to which weapon is meta. It's going to be the one that you're going to land the most shots with. If we suddenly change everything to 50% accuracy, so for every 2 bullets you're shooting, you're only hitting 1, again, it's now an entirely different conversation. You could change this literally a million different times with each one of these weapons. Okay, you're hitting 2% more with the NZ, 4% less with the bar, 6% more with the STG, so on and so forth, and you'd have different outputs here every single time. So if you're someone who's looking to figure out which gun they're going to be the most optimal with and what is the true meta for you in a situation like this where we have 4 guns that are basically identical with the exception of the automaton here, which is obviously, like we saw initially, a lot worse over range, it really is going to be the question of what am I going to land the most shots with. Real quick, I do want to show off the builds for those 5 weapons in particular, just so if you want to go and test and see which one you're the most comfortable with, because that's truly more important now than ever. You have some good builds to try out. STG here's going to be the same one we've been talking about for quite some time. MX 760 barrel, 2.5 times optic. The precision stock here, despite the lack of horizontal recoil, is going to pretty much negate any that you might come across there, so that's great. You could also try out something like folding as well for what it's worth. Nerves of steel, fully loaded polymer, the Gorenko 50 lengthened and hand stop for this one. For the bar here, MX silencer yet again, the 30-inch barrel, 3 to 6 times scope, the wire stock here for that better mobility, making it a little bit more aggressive. Hard scope, fully loaded polymer, the Klauser 40 round mag here for that best TTK, lengthened and then hand stop yet again. The Vargo, of course, we know is about as basic as it gets. GRU suppressor, task force, Spetsnaz 60 and 3 times optic. Literally the same copy and paste setup for all the Cold War rifles here. The Vargo just so happens to be the best right now. Automaton, pretty standard MX silencer, the 600mm barrel for the best control over range, 3 to 6 times, 2.5 times, whatever optic you're comfortable with. The padded stock, tight grip for better control, fully loaded polymer, the 75 round extended mag, lengthened, and then you guessed it, hand stop. Then the NZ, this is the setup that I personally prefer. There are a few different ways you could go about this. I like MX silencer with the Orb Weaver barrel. Orb Weaver is just the most consistent, and obviously you don't have to worry about ever toggling it when you pick it up. 2.5 times optic or 3 to 6 again. I personally like the padded stock here. A lot of players also run EPAC for the overall better control. I feel like padded's a little bit more forgiving when it comes to the cons. Frenzy, because honestly all the perk 1 perks kind of suck. Fully loaded polymer, the Sakura 50 round mags here for like basically no recoil, lengthened, then also hand stop on here once more. So if you want to try out some setups here that are very easy to use and really just come down to what you're going to be ultimately the most comfortable with, those are what I would recommend in the current meta right now. But that's going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. A bit of a different look at the meta compared to our usual stuff, but that's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, you already know every single day I got you covered with everything going on in COD. So feel free to hit that sub button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.